Polar est l'un des groupes de hardcore britanniques les plus sous-cotés du genre. Pourtant, pendant près de 15 ans, la formation s'est construit une réputation des plus solides en parcourant les affiches de festivals tels que le Never Say Die, le Longlive Rockfest en 2016, quelques concerts au Rock'n'It ou encore à la Marquise. En 2023, c'est une tempête des plus violentes que traverse Polar. En effet, le départ de tous les membres, excepté Adam Woodford, le chanteur, mène le musicien vers de nouvelles rencontres. Stefan, bassiste et également présent lors de cette interview, Bruno Consani et Simon Richardson, les guitaristes, et Max Flor, le batteur. Déterminé à tourner cette situation à son avantage, Adam, surnommé Woody dans cette interview, reconstruit Polar. L'album 5 Hours, sorti en novembre dernier, incarne cette revanche et ce nouveau souffle. Fort de nouvelles perspectives, d'une positivité et d'une maturité certaine, les musiciens reprendront la route en Europe début 2025, tournée qui ne s'arrêtera malheureusement pas en France. Dommage, une participation au Slam Dunk en France aurait ensoleillé mon mois de décembre, mais bref. Sur 5 Hours, Polar évoque dans ses paroles le pouvoir destructeur du changement. Le thème fait surtout référence au changement de line-up opéré il y a plusieurs mois, et qui laisse une marque indélébile dans l'histoire du groupe, mais se prête aussi à l'histoire de tout un chacun. Aujourd'hui, Polar est plus fort que jamais et prêt à en découdre.
How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you.
Good. Whereabouts are you based? Where are you from?
I'm in Lyon, in France.
Oh, okay, amazing.
You played there like back in 2016, I think.
A long time ago. Would have been me, yes. Not the current lineup, but yeah, personally. Was that with? I'm trying to think when that would have been that with. Was that Never Say Die?
It was maybe Never Said I Tour, but it was the Longlive Rockfest.
Oh yes, I remember the Longlive.
Yeah,
I remember. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Like North Lane in Casey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it. Well, I say I remember it well. It was a very long time ago. It's nearly, 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
I'm 10 years older than I am now. But yeah, no, it was a good festival.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice.
It was a nice venue. A really nice venue.
It is, yeah.
Steph is just coming now, and then we can start the interview. But no, thank you very much. And have you heard the album?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah. I've got a few questions about it, so.
Well, no, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
That's a great work, piece of work.
Thank you. Yeah. It's it was an interesting time making that album. I'm sure we'll talk more in a minute.
He's here.
So what we're doing is we've been splitting the interviews into twos, so we've got someone to kind of bounce off each other during it. So it's
that's cool. Thank you for doing this.
That's okay. No, you're welcome. No, thank you. The pleasure's all ours. Like, it really is. So have you done many interviews? Have you been interviewing many people? Have you had any interesting ones?
Yeah, I mean, for a year now, almost a year, I changed on my visual identity of my webzine. And before it was called One Standing Webzine, and now it's called House of Freaks. So yeah,
yes.
I managed to interview some Australian band a few weeks ago.
Oh, cool, amazing.
So yeah, that was tough because of the how do you call that?
Time zones.
Time zones. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so it was very nice because they were driving, they were on the van, and they just had to pull over to do the interview. So that was that was roots, like we say, but that was nice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
no, it's good. It's good to have those interviews on the road. Yeah, we're not a million miles off from doing something similar. So, we're about to go on tour. So, yeah, it's not far off.
Yo.
Yeah. Finally.
Yeah. Wow. What
He's in.
You know what? I spent like 15 minutes beforehand getting all set up. Like I got everything ready. I tested everything. I was like, right, I'm good to go. No complications. Join meeting. Everything just gone.
The same thing happened to me like some weeks ago, so no worries.
I'm so sorry.
No problem.
No, don't worry. We're all good. We're here. We're good.
So first, thank you for doing this interview. I have to say it's been a while since I saw you. Like it was in 2016, as I told you already. It was at Longlive Rockfest in Lyon. I remember that show. It was so energetic. It was it was blowing up like everywhere in the crowd. It was amazing. And since then, it's been quite a journey.
Yeah.
Mostly to the lineup changes. What motivated the lineup change that occurred last year?
Okay, so that really actually just came about with people wanting to leave. in all honesty, like it I won't put too much emphasis on it because out of respect and of the previous members, but we got the pandemic hit us in a nutshell, and we were no longer compatible. We kind of hit a point where everything had changed internally and in the world, and unfortunately those changes just changed the people that were in that band, and that unfortunately left us in a situation where we were no longer able to work together, and the majority of the band wanted to go, and I didn't want to leave it. I think Polar had a lot more to give as a band. I had a lot more to give, and I went about to find the best and the right people to continue the journey and start a new era. And I think it's great because for me, not many people get to see many like second chances to do something again and to rebuild something and to make something beautiful out of something. So I took the opportunity with both hands to really sort of like rejuvenate the band and start a brand new chapter. So I took a negative situation and made it into a positive, and that's pretty much what really happened. Unfortunately, with the previous members, it didn't end very well. We no longer talk, but things in life happen, things change. But there's been a real sun through the clouds afterwards because everything has developed and grown in such a great way that, you know, some things happen for a reason, and I believe that's a good reason why this happened.
Well, I mean that was kind of Woody's story on that part. You know, I came in afterwards, which I'm,
Yeah.
you know, super grateful for. You know, I just at the time Woody sent me a message. I was on a what was it? Bands in Town? No, one Bands in Town.
Band Mix.
Band Mix. Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah.
So I was actually, I was in a band a couple of years, well, like between 2015 and 2017, I was in a band, and that disbanded, and I was looking to join another band at the time, and I joined Band Mix, and I got loads of requests, like, you know, function bands, pub bands, cover bands, all of this, and there was a couple of bands that I kind of dabbled with that I thought might go somewhere, and I was getting to the point where I was kind of giving up on the idea, and I was like, oh, there's really nothing out there. Everyone has, like, either people I know are in the industry are already in bands, or there's people that are just kind of time wasters. Everyone wants to start a band until they start a band and they realize it's hard, and then, you know, it dissolves, you know. And I think at least two bands that I was kind of dipping my toes in at the time before Woody got in contact with me, they've now just dissolved. So it's like, it's just one of those things, you know, like, it's to try and find a group of individuals that are all on the same page. Moving forward is very, very hard. And yeah, I was in two minds of giving up with the old Band Mix thing, and I just got a message one day from Woody, and it all kind of went from there. So yeah.
Okay. Could you please walk me through 3 most important steps that marked your 15-year career?
The 3 important steps. I think the biggest one is the lineup change. You know, that adds a new dynamic. It's new people, it's fresh ideas, it's fresh heads, it's people that wouldn't necessarily known the band from an outside perspective, and for them to look in and bring like new ideas and potentially show me parts of the band that could change, parts of the band that could grow, that I might never have been able to see maybe with previous lineups. Another big turning point was our album Nova. I think that was the one that really kind of sort of turned a lot of heads. I guess that was the bridge between us being a bit more in the metalcore market and like maybe departing so much from the hardcore stuff. That album, and I think that really, you know, that was a real sort of turning point. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else major, like really those. I think a lot of touring. Those are like every time you tour, every time you do something with a live like aspect, that changes everything because you never know who you're playing in front of. You never know who you're actually bringing on board. You don't know the new fans are coming in, but that always adds a new dynamic to every live show. It's always, you're always going to bring a potential of new people on board. So every time you bring new people in, it brings new interest and it allows the band to grow.
Flash forward to 5 hours. So I listened to it a few times, and I find there are more electronic sounds in this, more polished production as well. Was it something you wanted to do, you wanted to achieve with this album?
Yeah, I'll let Steph have a chat about that, actually. I think we all come from mutual perspectives, but it's probably more interesting to have us both sort of say our pieces on it. But
yeah, absolutely. I definitely think it was something that we intended to do. We all come from different musical backgrounds. You know, when the band lineup changed, obviously Woody being the only member left, and you know, he's got 4 individuals in, with all different musical backgrounds. You know, like you put any one of our Spotify's on, it's all the same circle, but different parts of that circle, you know. So it was interesting to see how all of our ideas melded together. But Woody did have and Simon, our guitarist, was it Unkillable? Was it the first one, I think, that you had with Jack Murphy? And Jack Murphy, our producer, he kind of introduced the idea of maybe having like a bit more electronics on there, some more synths here and there, and it hit with us straight away. You know, we was like, yeah, it sounds fresh, even though it sounds current, it sounded fresh with the band. And what Woody said with Nova, the record, you know, there had some samples in there already, and it was, you know, the old Polar kind of albums already dipping their toes into that. So I think with the new lineup change, it was ready to dive into that sound. Plus, we also wanted to make a statement, you know, like, there are people out there that are very vocal, that they don't like the new Polar. That's fair enough, you know, but we're not the same band. And we also didn't want to be creating an album that was 10 years old. You know, we was like, you know what, we've got new members now. It's a new mentality. That would be quite funny when that comes out, if you understand. New mentality with everything. And we was like, you know what, let's just dive in a deep end. Let's throw more electronics at it, like Polar did originally with Nova, and really work with Jack Murphy at Crystal Sounds to really enhance those sounds, and literally just throw this one out the park and be like, here's a new band, here's a new lineup, and now we sound super different. But as you heard from the album itself, there are some songs in there that kind of throw back to a bit more of an old school Polar vibe. So we wanted to let people know, like, hey, we're still here, but, you know, let us try this, you know, because what's the point in changing a whole new lineup for an album to come out? But so they've done nothing then apart from sound the same. You know, we wanted to really put a new twist on things.
Mm-hmm. So you said in the PR I received a few weeks ago that 5 Hours goes deep into the subject of the destructive power of change. When we look closer, it could have something to do with your band's story, and when we look at the bigger picture, it could also be related to the actual state of the world. Could you tell me more about this album subject and how it inspired the songs in it?
Well, yeah, you know, you're very right in what you say. It's I felt personally, the effect of change, the destructive power of change, and maybe that is more channeling into the previous relationships I had with the old member and the quite heartbreaking process of us having to really disband and losing friendships over it. But that destructive power of change was happening internally, and it was happening worldly as well. The whole world's changed. Everyone's changed. You know, people's mentalities have changed, and whether it's for good or for bad, it's something that everyone's having to deal with constantly. Is change. The nothing is the same. Nothing will ever go back to the way it was. Unless you embrace that change and you understand that change, it's hard to move forward. And that really resonates with me. Like, I don't think anyone ever wants to feel like they're stuck in one position. And sometimes these heartbreaking moments that, you know, I really focus in with the destructive power changes, these things are going to change they're going to change you, they're going to change everything you're about. But unless you embrace them and understand them and learn from them and grow with them, you're going to be that stuck in that one position. And I found it very therapeutic to put it into words, to be able to like almost clear my chest of it, like take the weight off my shoulders with it. And it's like it's an album where negatives and positives come together, but without each other they don't exist, so they need to exist, and that is part of change. It's seeing what is changing and how you can take a negative situation and make that positive, and how those relationship changes are affecting you as a person and how they change you. And I think, honestly, I think a lot of people nowadays struggle with change because nobody wants things to change. Everyone wants it to stay the same. And I can understand that. Like with life, I think some people like complacency, like the idea that everything you find a channel in life and you move forward in that channel, and within that, nothing really changes. You have a couple of life changes, but you're fundamentally still sort of moving forward. But it's just not the world we live in, and that can be quite scary. And in order for me to sort of like combat that fear, I have the most amazing vessel to put it through, and that musician and a lyricist, and been able to actually like be vocal about. And I hope by me being vocal about, embrace change and even the difficult moments and the more like happier moments, it allows people to realize that everyone's having to embrace this. I think that's maybe my kind of push on the album vocally, is to make people realize that like although I do something very cool and like I'm with some of the best people in the world doing it, it still comes with change, it still comes with adapting, it still comes with growth, and that you can get through those moments, you can grow, and you can turn something that can be really quite like harrowing to yourself into something that can become very beautiful and grow. And it would be, for me, it's great if people can like hear that album and then start to feel inside themselves that although they're in these positions and they don't want to change, that maybe embrace and having to sort of deal with the destructive powers of it, that you can come out with something really good and positive from it.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to add something, Stefan?
I mean, like, just because Woody pretty much like had it all on the head, really, and even coming from my own personal point of view, like even with the lyrics being very personal to Woody, that I think we can all find something in it. Even my past experiences. There's some songs on the record that are very much hitting the nail on the head. With the themes, like swimming with sharks. All of those kind of very between the lines, stuff that I could even take from past bands that I was in, and Unkillable as well. And I got to this point where I was just like I said, when I was in the band mix, and I didn't think I was going to be able to get into another band, and it was a real struggle. And then, so when these songs are coming out and the lyrical themes of like, no, we're still fighting through this. And, like I said, like Woody said, like throughout the change, we're all still there. We're still fighting forward to have the common goal, which is, to create music and spread messages, that, no one's alone in all of this. And it doesn't matter what background you're coming from, you can still achieve the things that you've always wanted to,
Earlier, you were talking about the fact that this album contains songs that make us think of the old Polar, and with songs that are actually the actual Polar. I found there are some interesting contrasts between some songs, like, for example, there's a new mentality that has a metalcore sound with scream and clean singing. To the opposite, there is Paranoia that you released with Rachel from Cage Fights, bringing aggressive and raw sounds with her voice, which is amazing. Did you want to bring out such contrasts into songs on 5 Arrows?
Yeah, absolutely. If you take this album and you take what Polar have done, Polar up until we kind of built boundaries and a almost like a design of how a Polar album should be and we followed that for quite a few albums, but not the same album, but we slowly progressed and progressed. And I think one thing I would definitely say is I don't think previous albums have been challenging enough. I think the music was great and I think people loved it and I think people got on board with it, but they challenged people to think about the band enough. And I think the good thing about what we've done now is we've created music which has such heavy contrast throughout the whole record that it makes people think. Now, whether that's good or bad, it doesn't matter, because even if someone writes a bad comment about it, we're in someone's head long enough for them to write those words. Whereas before, I don't think we challenged people enough. You know, we would just get, you know, nice comments and you can never knock people for being supportive, but they were almost like, yeah, really cool, love it, move on. You know, we weren't getting into people, under people's skin enough. I think music needs to be challenging. I think Poland needed to become a challenging band. And in order to do that, you've got to write a heavy contrast of music, because that's just going to allow people to think about your band. It's going to allow people to have opinions about your band. For me, it is rewarding, because if you can get under people's skin, whether it's good or bad, you know you've done something right because you're in someone's head.
I also love the song Swimming with Sharks. I mean, I would say that it's my favorite from the record. That voice at the very beginning and before every chorus, it brings something very unique to it. Could you tell me more about its creative process?
Yeah, so I think that was the second song we ever wrote collectively. And what I think we were then trying to do is we did like look at this as an opportunity to really look at the history of the band. Like, we started off as a very raw, you know, plug and play hardcore band. You know, like there was no electronics at the beginning. It was literally put your amp onto 11 and go hard. And I think with the new lineup, what we have done and wanted to do is we wanted to honor the past and respect the history of the band's music, but put that fresh perspective. And I think Swimming with Sharks has got that old school hardcore vibe. Vocally, I sound more hardcore than I have done in a long time. And that was really cool, because I got to revisit what I used to sound like, but in a newer way. And then it was like elevated by the fact that our producer, Jack Murphy, was just like, we can like genre bend this, you know, we can really like put your old school stuff, but put this whole fresh production on top of it. And it will just lift what you're doing or what has been done before, but gives it that new dimension. But yeah, like we were like really like conscious to make something that was like respectful to the past, but like really forward thinking to the future at the same time. And I think that song really like shows all the elements of what the whole new Polar sound is about.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you on that one. Like just from the song starting off with this kind of Eastern sounding sample, you know, and then it just goes into like this two-steppy chorus, you know, with you know, Woody just doing what he does over the top, and then one thing that Pro was always good at, which we still wanted to do in this record, which you've heard, is, you know, we wanted to have these big singy catchy choruses as well. So we've gone from this really cool Eastern weird sounding sample at the beginning straight into a two-step verse, then big shouty singy chorus where everyone can join in, and then obviously you've got that, you know, that monstrous breakdown at the end, you know. Yeah, it's like Willie said, it was, we just wanted to keep that element of like, no, we're still here, you know, even though there's going to be stuff here that's sounding, because if you take all those samples out, it's a rough and ready hardcore song, you know, like with those kind of verses and a two-step vibe. Second verse like really hits hard, like when we was at Mighty Sounds, and you know, everyone's just really on that second verse at Mighty Sounds, you know. So yeah, it's got everything there.
Just a quick question, who is the singer on the song Need Want?
Okay, that is Ellie Price.
Okay.
And Ellie has been on, she's on every song on Nova, not as a guest on everyone, but she helped a lot to like boost vocal melody and to accentuate. She famously had a song with us on our previous album, Everything. She did a song called Rush, with which was a bit more of a collaborative piece. And it all started with her in 2014 She was on Shadow by Vultures on a song called Before the Storm. And that's the first time she was actually introduced to us by the guy who was producing us at the time. And we've just stayed lifelong friends, and it's become a bit of a tradition, really, to have her on the record. And when we were doing the record, we all talked about it, like about keeping that familiarity and having that consistency. And she just jumped on board it. And she's, you know, an incredible musician and a lifelong friend. And it just wouldn't feel the same. You know, it's nice to have this whole brand new like perspective, but having these little kind of still connections to like what Polar have done. And she's a big part of the puzzle.
That's so cool to stay in touch with people like that. That's very cool. There never was more than 3 years between your releases. Hats off for that, because it's not easy, I guess. Is it something you care about? Keep on releasing music, being busy?
I think unfortunately Spotify now tell you how much music you've got to release a year. So like, I don't think we get much of a call. The industry's changed. The mechanics of music has changed. And people's attention spans has changed. People get bored of things so quickly now. The pandemic has ruined people's attention spans. And in order to progress and move forward, you've just got to constantly be in people's faces and ears. And that basically just comes from having a real kind of like consistent and steady release with it. And it's good for us because it pushes us to keep writing music. Like Steph and the other guys have started writing music, and I've not heard that part of it yet, but that, you know, by having music come in, it just means that we know that we've got to have something else to come with it. Keeps us on our toes. It keeps us motivated. So although, you know, Spotify demand that you should be releasing like 700 singles a year, we want to be active, and we're in such a good position now where we can grow as a band. We work very well as a team, and we want to just keep working off that real positive stage we're at. So yeah, constantly writing music is always a good thing.
Yeah, I kind of going, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing at the same time. Like personally, it's kind of like, yeah, we've already started writing new music and our album hasn't even come out yet, because it's like I feel like in this industry, you've always got to kind of keep ahead of the curve, because people's retention is so short these days. You know, a band can work on an album for a year or 2 years, they release it, and then they flick past it on TikTok like really quick. Oh, new single. They've not called me. See ya. And then like all of a sudden you've forgotten about in a flash because the next new trend has been caught or something like this. And it's like this constant cat and mouse of like, we want to put all of our love and all of our passion into writing music, which we do, and then it's out, and then everyone's already moved on to the next thing. I feel like times might have been simpler to write music like 20 years ago, you know, but now with technology and this day and age, it's like, oh right, we've just made this album, right, next one, like hang on, we can't enjoy that for a little bit, like no, we gotta keep writing, you know. It's it's a blessing and a curse.
When I first listened to 5 Hours, I found myself being like squeezed and trapped in some dark place. This is really something I find interesting as well, because of the sensations that feel very real, very concrete. On the other hand, it's clearly an album to listen to when we want to let go of things, you know, just to let go of everything once in the crowd. You've been quite a part of it for some time now. What are your thoughts on the global music industry? We were talking about it just now.
Global industry. It's a hard industry now. The toughest in the world, I think, the entertainment industry. I think that falls down to attention spans and money. You've got to be thick skin and be prepared to go for the ride. And wherever that ride takes you, you've got to weather the storm with it. Surround yourself by good people, put people in your team and people working for you that you trust. And I think that's the strongest like move you could ever make, because there's a lot of sharks out there. There's a lot of people that are in it for the wrong reasons. There's a lot of people in it that are there to try and make money off someone else. So yeah, it's just about surrounding yourself with the right people, and I think that's the best way to maneuver your way through the music industry, because build those like bridges of trust to people that you really do trust. I think you know you're going to hit when you hit stormy waters. You hit stormy waters with the right ship.
Mm-hmm. Finally, what's next for you? You were mentioning a tour coming up earlier.
We're going on tour in the UK in November. We're doing the UK tour, album release tour. We're playing a show on the 5th with what they call Strange. Yeah. Which is quite cool. Looking forward to doing that. And then we are making some plans for Europe early next year. The idea is to try and play as far and wide and as many times as possible. And the tool we've got to do that with is the album. So as soon as the album comes out, we're hoping that will just open the floodgates in order for us to do as many festivals, tours. And these guys are writing music, and just to keep while the wheels are moving quickly and the ship's sailing correctly, is just to try and feed off that and keep that positivity going in the right direction.
Yeah, it's super important that we get out there. With such a big change that Woody and Pola's gone through, it's now we want to, once the album is out, people are going to hear it. I mean, like individually, the singles, like because we are throwing left balls here and everywhere, like because the album is so different, but the album really does make sense when you listen to it as a whole piece. What I found, but I totally understand when people hear like "We Won't Sleep," then randomly "Swimming with Sharks." Then and kid, it was like, well, where's all of this? But because we are trying to do so many different things with this album because of the new members. But yeah, when you listen to the album from start to finish, it does make sense. You can really hear that journey. And now we need to make sense to the public. We need to go live with it, and we need to show people that, yeah, okay, we've changed, but we're doing just as good as anyone else.
Merci à James, Woody et Stefan d'avoir pris de leur temps pour planifier cette interview et répondre à mes questions. Désolé à vous pour mon anglais bancal, c'est plus difficile qu'on ne le croit. Je vous souhaite de très belles fêtes de fin d'année, prenez soin de vous et à bientôt.